Alright, hello and welcome everyone to my first video here. My name is Aces, and I'm going to be going into and detailing what exactly this all is here in front of you. I'm super excited to start going into details about this. I have no idea what exactly even I should start with, how I'd even go about talking about this. All I know is that I worked on this, it's a cool project, and I just wanted to do a show and tell. So welcome to my TED Talk here. And hopefully throughout the next few days, maybe weeks here, I'm going to be going into more details about how something was set up here. So hopefully maybe if there's comments and questions in the bottom there, I'll be glad to kind of go into more details here. This is just a personal project I've built for myself. It's not based on anything existing. It's not based on any pre-existing images or anything like that. I just one day downloaded LaunchBox, fell in love with the app, and just decided to learn about it, learn about all these emulators, and set up this entire system that you have here. So, like I said here for the first video, I'm going to try to keep it pretty high level. Probably learn how to make videos as I go, that would be great. And yeah, kind of see what we have here. So what we have here really quick, this is LaunchBox. LaunchBox is an arcade front end. We're going to be going over a few sections such as arcade, clone hero, computers, consoles, Fightcade, handhelds, karaoke, just explaining about the cool things that are unique in them that I kind of did. Yeah, there's a bunch of neat things there. Right, and to describe the room around here, because there's just, geez, I don't even know where to start. Okay, so taking a look around the room here, we have lights. These lights are synced up through a camera underneath the TV here using a Govee system. Essentially, we'll try to be matching up what's on the TV, broadcasting lights in the room. And yeah, that's pretty nifty. To the left there are turntables I set up in the system because it's not going to be just an arcade. It's going to be an entire karaoke / DJ system here. So there's some Numarx HDXs connected to a Numarx Serato Scratch mixer. They're connected into a audio-video receiver, into some tower speakers. So this whole setup is actually pretty, sounds pretty fantastic too. On the top right, there's also a monitor speaker, specifically like a studio monitor speaker, essentially. I believe it's a Marquees. Oh, I forgot what Marquee it is exactly, but I'll find out later. It's just for vocals, so I have like a Shure SM58, I believe it is the microphone there, and then this one I'm speaking on. I don't recall the USB mic I'm speaking on here, but we're going to be going into those details here. We're going to be doing a setup that has multiple controllers. We're going to be working with 8-bit Do Pro 2s. We're going to be working with Guitar Hero and Rock Band guitars. We're going to be working with Xbox Elite controllers, PS5 controllers, N64 wireless controllers, Wiimotes, GameCube controllers, 6-button Genesis pads, 6-button Hori fight sticks. Did I say Wiimotes? We're going to include taiko drums. I think that covers most of the inputs that we're going to be working on here. They're all going to be selectable from these menus that you see here. Nothing's going to be needing to go into a GUI. I'm not going to be jumping in and out and doing that. I'm going to be displaying how I have it all set up so that's selectable. We're going to be going over the cameras here. Let's take a look at that here. So on the bottom left should be the monitors that is displayed there on the left. In the center is going to be the Marquee monitor there. And while I don't have it displayed, there's a small screen underneath the TV that's going to be for media and content. And then, of course, the main screen there, and then the camera capturing the room. It's pretty neat. I don't know, like I said, I don't really know how to set up something, but this looked pretty neat. So kind of captures everything that we're doing here. We're going to be doing light guns, yes. So we have Sinden guns here, so I'm going to be displaying all the emulators here, how they're all set up. 288 games, probably going to be more here soon. All configured to work with Sinden, 2-player Sinden guns. So I can go into how that was all done. They all have unique profiles, so some certain Sinden guns will... I'll jump into that here soon. Yeah, there's going to be an arcade panel here that's going to be working with every game and every emulator. All those controllers that I mentioned are all going to be selectable for every game and every emulator, or at least like 95% of them. If there's something that's not, I'll probably go into more details as to why, because I'm sure there'll be some curiosity to it. There's... yeah, I think that covers at least the general overview what we're going to be jumping into, because there's a lot. All right, so going into quick details, consoles, 21,907 games. We're going to be looking at multiple consoles here. We're going to be looking at N64 with 351 games, the NES with 1,176, GameCube with 580, Super Nintendo with 1,321, Nintendo Switch with 132, but we're not going to really detail that here. I'm still working on that section, and plus I'm pretty sure it's like a no-no to talk about too much. I'm going to talk about what I've done to configure for the emulators there, and some really cool things about the controllers and things like that, but I don't think I'll be probably showing too much gameplay. Wii, 2,259 games. Wii U, 866 games. Philips CDI, 120. 32X, 42. Sega CD, 171, Dreamcast, 399, Sega Genesis, 910, Sega Master System, 293, Sega Saturn, 590, Neo Geo, 146, Neo Geo CD, 102, PlayStation, 1968, PlayStation 2, 2565, PlayStation 3, 2524, 3DO, 183, Atari 2600, 569, Atari 5200, 99 games, Atari 7800, 67 games, Jaguar and Jaguar CD actually, 83 games, ColecoVision, 168, Amiga CD32, 134, Intellivision, 160 with the greatest fan art ever, Xbox with 945, Xbox 360 with 2,055 games, PCFX with 78, TurboGrafx 16, 439, TurboGrafx CD 412, and yeah, back to N64. Alright, so now that we went over that quick overview of what's going to be in store here soon, what you're looking at is a couple mods. So this is LaunchBox, particularly BigBox, which is a paid version of LaunchBox, which allows it to be displayed on a TV like this. Some of the mods that I'm using here first, I think it's Third Screen is the plugin. So Third Screen is what makes all this magic work. Third Screen is a fantastic plugin. Maybe I'll try to find the creator's name and such, but just look up Third Screen LaunchBox. Clearly you'll find it. Makes all this magic work here. The themes that I'll be using here, what you're seeing in front of you is Vision. Vision is my favorite theme here for the main menu. The big reason I'm using this here is a little bit of uniformity. I love to be invested in the games and the history that we're going to be seeing here, so things like the art is just something that really kind of gets you into the mood here. It gives a bunch of cohesion to everything too. The marquee that you see above there, that's going to be displaying things dynamically, along with the media on the left monitor and the bottom monitor. What I mean by that exactly, you'll see here in a moment. It's pretty nifty. It's going to be going into another theme, and it's going to be displaying some more of the box art and media inside all these sections. This fan art, or this display in particular, doesn't change, again, for cohesion. One of the big things that I'm stressing with this build here is uniformity, cohesion, something that makes sense, doesn't get you too distracted, and simple ease of use, something that you're never going to have to alt-tab out of, going to need to go into a GUI. Everything should be hopefully pretty straightforward. It's going to be pretty neat, some of the things that I'll be showing here. And yeah, so going into a few things here, let's just go into, well, my favorite system is always Super Nintendo, so let's just start off with that here. So Super Nintendo, and every subsection of all these systems are going to be divided in such a way too. So for example, Super Nintendo, you have North America, 735 games, translations, 235, all games, which is essentially just specifically North America and Europe, not games like translations or anything like that. It's just more if you want to take a look and grab more of that history. So yep, we have the European section, 125, for example. The MSU1, which is the Media Enhancement Unit, essentially what became the Sony PlayStation, but is like a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo. Wonderful section of media. And every system that I'll be showing off here shortly is going to be subdivided in these kind of cool sections. In particular, this is going to be grabbing random fan art from each specific subsection. So like translation is going to pull a random fan art for the translation section of games. These are all playlists that are dynamically generated, so if I ever add a game that I've missed for whatever reason under Europe, and the locations Europe, it's going to auto-classify it. So they're dynamic, nothing needs to be manually done or regenerated. And then the sections. Let's go into one really quickly. Let's just go into all games. So this is when another theme kicks into play here. So while we were looking at vision there, we're going to be looking at Coverbox here in a specific subsection of Coverbox, a specific view. So I can go into more details about that later here too. But the same person, I think, who made Vision made this theme also. Absolutely magic. Love it. Brilliant work. I hope they continue on their work, because some of the systems that I have here don't have a Coverbox theme associated with it. But I mean, look at this. This is brilliant. I love it. Look up Coverbox on LaunchBox. It's just great. So some of the cool details that you're going to be seeing here now under each subsection, I keep forgetting to scroll through to keep showing some of these, but Marquee is dynamically generated. Now you can see what essentially that means. It's going to be grabbing a clear logo from each game that you see there. So it's not a random clear logo. It's grabbing the game's clear logo and then a random background fan art, I believe is what it is for the Marquee, and it's going to be automatically grabbing that. So if there is multiple pieces of fan art for a specific game, normally the bigger ones like the Final Fantasies and such, you'll have kind of like a dynamically generated random Marquee, because it's going to be pulling one of those random backgrounds and slapping the clear logo on it. It's great. I think it provides like a 60% fade on the back. It looks wonderful. I'll go into more details about that here too. On the left, you can see, again, it's showing all the box art. So all the box art is going to be aligned with the games that I'll be showing here that we're going to be going into more detail. Cool things are like for the translations, and you saw the Marquee there with showing Super Famicom, but we'll still show you the Japanese games. So every subsection will have all the media here too. Well, I mean, maybe not all the media, but it's going to have a lot of the media here all matching up to the location that it's from also. So you'll have really neat stuff like BB gun, clock tower, and it's mesmerizing box art that you can just completely get lost into. It's really neat. Not only that here, so I'm going to be detailing that in more details in upcoming videos, but each game is going to also have really neat subsections. So what we see here are like manual. Every game in this collection that has this is going to have this available. Manually, you just click on it, and look, you can zoom in on it, you can view it, you can catch yourself up with the game. It is amazing. I love LaunchBox for this. It is brilliant. If you want to get involved in the games, I'll be showing you a bunch of cool images for these games that you can set up and get invested in before you launch into them. You can take a look at viewing 3D models. You can zoom in here with your controller. It is super. Viewing videos full screen, we're going to be going into that. Well, let's try that again here. Yeah, there we go. Now it's working. We're going to be talking about how related games work. And when you have a collection that's expansive like this, you can go ahead and actually click on some of these that it'll be taking you into and being able to view them. So Wonder Boy 3, boom, if it's in your collection, you can go straight to it, take a look and invest in that game now, view its images. I'll be displaying things like that. So we're going to be going into more details for that. And we're going to be going into launch with, and every emulator and every subsection in here is going to have its own unique launch with or add-on, I believe it, or I forgot what the other one was called here, but it can run additional add-on applications. So you're going to be displaying how we can play every game with like the 6-button controller, a Super Nintendo controller, a PlayStation 5 controller, an X-button controller, which is all the, basically covers all the controllers that I mentioned at the start here. So if I feel like playing Street Fighter with a 6-button controller, for example, we're going to be going into like these 8-bit M30s. I can go ahead and I'll be showing that here, and it'll be neat. What are some other cool things that we're going to be going into? I'm going to be showing off things like for the Wii, some pretty nifty subsections about the Virtual Console, how that works. I'm going to be displaying filters actually too. We're going to be going into more details in future videos here. about how to configure crazy looking RetroArch filters, because one thing I learned along the way here is this is definitely part of the magic. I'm going to show it really quick here about what I mean. These launch video, every game will have one of these cool intro startup static screens, I guess, splash screens. I'm going to be talking about retro achievements on the top left. I'm going to be going into more details about that for future videos. I'm going to be going over how bezels work, particularly why I chose this one as a TV. Every RetroArch emulator except for arcades are going to be having this. Arcades will be having their own unique bezel art. I'm going to be going into more details about that. What I want to show is essentially how these filter or shaders here work. This is how the game normally looks. Well, I mean, through the magic of shaders. Things like the reflection of the TV there along the edges. We're going to be talking about that. But this is the magic that shaders can do. Some of the fun things that you'll be seeing is how this looks on the different emulators. I'll probably be going through them. But yeah, this is like a standard emulator that you would see in like SNES 9X without any shaders, that you maybe download your own emulator, you're playing it. Yeah, and let's turn on these filters here that we're going to be discussing soon. These filters are ones that I use from RetroArch, but then completely configured to my own tastes. There's lots of reconfiguration done to them, but make no mistake, they're based on specific RetroArch existing shaders that I'll explain more details on. I'll try to remember what changes I've made. I honestly don't remember. There's so many, but I'll go over what the current settings are maybe, and things like that. Some overrides, things like that that I've set up here. And then we're going to be talking about that too. Yeah. We're going to be talking about a lot, hopefully. So getting out of this game here now, we just go start and select, and we quit out. And every game has a game over screen here. Makes it look real pretty. And yeah, so now we can go on to a couple other sections here. I can kind of give a few details. Oh yes, the music. The way that that works here, every game will, if it has its own music, when you scroll over it, it'll play the game's default music for that specific game. If you're in the main menus here, or the game doesn't have any music associated with it, it's going to pick a random song. But it'll stay cohesive simply because if you're going through these menus until you actually get into the section, you can go into each subsection here and still have access to it without the music changing or being very disjointed, which is pretty neat. So really quickly, I'll go over into every game section really quickly before I go into more details in further videos in the future. So every system that you see here has no duplicates. All these numbers are specifically the games associated with that section, apart from like all games being a combination of Europe and North America, for example. But Europe is specifically just European released games. North America is just North American released games. So for like Wii, for example, we're going to be going through a bunch of different subsections like North America, Translations, Virtual Console, WiiWare. And then when we go into each section, again, brilliant Coverbox shown here. You'll be able to go into each game and see the additional apps versions for the different games. If there is a European and a American version, you can normally select them also in the different additional apps and versions. But like, for example, with LaunchWith for the Wii, you'll see here that it has many examples that I'll be going over. Every game has all these examples, except if you're going under the GameCube, for example. GameCube, you're not going to be seeing Wii options, even though it uses Dolphin, the same emulator. It'll know that if you're in the GameCube section, well, you're never going to use a Wii mode for those ones. But if you're in the Wii section, you will actually use a GameCube input for certain games for whatever reason that you might have, but you're able to. You can mostly do things like the 6 button is good for Tatsunoko versus Capcom, so I'll be showing that here. All the Guitar Hero games and all the emulators are all configured to work with real guitars, I guess they would be, but essentially with PlayStation 2 and 3 dongles and Xbox 360 dongles that I'll be going into details with. It's not the greatest experience until you actually get into things like the PlayStation 3, because really, I mean, it's the Wii, and yeah. and it works. So if you want to subject yourself to it, you're more than welcome to. And then, yeah, so we can keep going through all these different sections here. For like the Wii again, the marquees are generated really nifty. Sometimes it's fun to just literally scroll through some of these games and just look at what art is generated on the marquees. Same with the box art. You can actually go walk up to the monitor on the left there and take a real close look at some of the box art that's generated. It's fantastic. So some of the other sections we'll be detailing here. WiiU. WiiU is going to be unique because I'll be displaying how its emulator actually displays what's on your gamepad on the left screen. So all those games in that subsection you'll be able to view over there here as if you're looking at a gamepad. So in here we're going to be having retail games, eShop, official store games. The difference being that the official store and the retail games, well, the retail games are on CD and they're just different image types. I can go into more details later, but it's the eShop that's the real magic because there's a whole bunch of fun indie type games there. A lot of these games are a lot smaller, which is why there's like 560 of them. But there's actually some pretty good fun games on here. So taking a look, the neat thing about the setup with the dynamic marquees and such is that even for smaller games that might not have specific media available or easily available, you'll be able to have something created that looks fairly nice. At least I feel it looks pretty nice, that are auto-generated and just works for every subsection. But even these also have the box art, so I think that's probably one of the more important things. We'll go into more details about that here shortly. The Philips CDI, it doesn't have any subsections because it was a pretty straightforward system, so I'll show that later. The 32X, which is also the 32X media unit enhancements and things like that. It's pretty neat. It doesn't have any subsections, but I love the theme of it, so I'm going to show it really quick. Looks really cool. I love the marquees that it creates with the media available for these. Cosmic Carnage there had the sound for the music there, sorry. Doom plays the music when you go over. But I love that Doom marquee, or this Doom marquee. This is one of the MD Plus ROMs that I mentioned that has essentially like the MDU, but for the Genesis, except this is for the 32X on top of it. Same with Mortal Kombat 2, has the same MD Plus. But yeah, it's great taking a look at some of these games here. I love the 32X theme. We'll be going into that in more details in the future. Sega 32X, you have things like the unlicensed section here, all games, North America, overseas, and getting into Sega CD here. We have a couple. I heard the Star Wars theme. There's I wonder what that'll do. Sometimes it pulls maybe something that might be copyrighted, so oopsie daisy. Go under all games, Sega CD. This is a pretty nifty theme. I love the blue streaks, just like the boxes used to be. It's wonderful. And then, you go under each subsection and you'll be able to do the launch with. So you have the 6-button controllers or the X input controllers. We have the Dreamcast section, again, translations, unlicensed games, all games. You can go under the Japanese section and we'll see the Japanese boxes. Love that swipe in, looks beautiful. You can see the Japanese media now on the left there. Still wonderful marquees being created. Going into the Genesis. Yeah, this is where I think I'll probably just go really briefly over everything that's available because I want to make future videos. And I think that's what I'm going to be going into, explaining how all these sort of work and what they're all about. Some of the cool things that, I can go into some more details for those later. But yeah, then we can go into the Sega Master System, oversee translations, all games, Europe, North America. Love it. Sega Saturn, North America, translations, all games. All these ROM sets aren't, they're based off sets, but they're not based off of any pre-existing images. Again, I don't know if I mentioned that, maybe I did. But these are all things that I sort of combed through and selected myself, added to, trimmed through, renamed a few times. But a lot of the times to get the media to match up properly with what you actually want the media to match up to, you have to make sure your media sets and your ROMs are named correctly. So if your ROM sets aren't named correctly, it's not going to find the correct media, or it might find something from another region. So you'll have like European BoxArt for your North American games, which, I mean, isn't the worst, but you definitely like to have some cohesion. Custom web browser, I can usually filter, so I guess sometimes there's things like this I can remove, overlook it, but I can go through and trim those out later. Earthworm Jim 2, wonderful game. Mr. Tallarico. Maybe now that I said his name, you'll appear in this video here too in the comments, who knows. Neo Geo, 146 games. No subsections, just simply because it's the Neo Geo. But I love the theme, and some of the art is so sharp, like Captain Tomaday. Love it. Just bold lines, just look great. Neo Geo CD, which is essentially the Neo Geo, but slower loading, but it has a couple, I think, specific games that were made just for it, like Crosswords 2. I'm pretty sure this is a Neo Geo CD exclusive. So that's kind of neat to have this section. Yeah. So then we go on to the PlayStation. This is where we get a whole bunch of games. 1,414 just specifically North American games. 37 translations, 29 unlicensed, and 1,793 total. The theme is wonderful. I love how the CD will sort of slide out there on the right. That is just the best. I love that. Yeah, this section I think is all matched up with music also, so it's just fun to just explore. A lot of the PlayStation library had really strange things. Austin Powers Pinball, sure. But yeah, we're going to be going into more details about that. I'd like to go into one of the games just to show the shaders and such, but I'll probably go to that later. PlayStation 2, what do we have here? All games, 2,515 essentially, but also have translations, 50. Well, I guess that's what is specific to the PlayStation 2's the translations, which is unique, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's still cool to have PlayStation 2 translations. Usually you don't think that when it gets to the bigger games, like the PlayStation 3, actually I think there's some translations for that. The Xbox 360, I think, has some translations, which is kind of takes you off guard, and like didn't think anybody would do that for that. But yeah, there's a few. Works great. Every game is configured to every emulator also that I'll be going into here for each subsection is configured to work for what I feel are the best settings. So I'll be going into like video filters, upscaling, SMA filtering, just a bunch of neat things that I found going along the way, and what I found to be effective in regards to things like N64 was probably one of the more problematic sections to try to find configurations for a lot of the games, oddly enough. PlayStation 3, that's one of the more exciting ones to go into, simply because of just how the emulator works. It is so sophisticated, it is mind-blowing. I had zero idea how far along the PlayStation 3 is in its emulation. I mean, there's still a lot of problems with it, but just how sophisticated it is at this point is really mind-blowing. So we can go under North America, overseas, and translations. Look like we even have 15 translations. That's pretty neat. 1,092 games for this here. Starting off with 3D Dot Heroes, which was a wonderful Mario-esque game. Brilliant. So the way that this one works here is that it didn't have a Coverbox theme, which is what I mentioned about, I hope they continue to work on in the future. But Vision kicks in pretty well. I think Vision has a little bit of a modern feeling to it regardless in this specific view, which works pretty well for the modern system, so I guess it kind of works out. My own feedback that I would have for this is that I wish there was like a video, I guess, that might fade in on the center, which is probably why I actually came up with the entire idea of using that monitor at the bottom, because I'm like, I love this theme so much, it's the greatest, but I just have to have a video included somewhere, and I don't really know how to go into I'm sure I could probably go into the XML or something and figure it out, but I'm just like, oh no. So it works pretty well with the monitor on the bottom, adding in the video that I wanted. And yeah, this is pretty nifty. I love the generated art here for these. Again, box art for everything. Yeah. The cool things with this also is how the additional apps work specifically for these, because it's not like how the other emulators were with LaunchWith. This one, because you install content. Oh, that was the other thing. Every PlayStation 3 game, PlayStation Vita, anything that really had DLC content has every DLC installed. Everything that had patches for it has the patches installed. So all these games here in the PlayStation 3 section, I mean, I can't say they all have them because obviously they're not archived everywhere, but a huge portion of all these games have all the DLC content and all the patches applied fully, which definitely took time. But you know what? It was fun. It's kind of like some people like knitting. I like to sit here and apply patches, I suppose. But this is just a passion project, honestly. Like, I just got lost in just being able to get invested in all this. It's fun. So again, you can go with things like view-related games like we showed there earlier. I would hope that similar games will show Pokemon, but who knows for the Digimon. But this is all pretty good if you have the game installed here. So things like PlayStation 3 Ragdoll Kung Fu, hey, I do have it installed. So go ahead, it'll get you right into the game here. You can click play. Yeah, I'll go into more details about those games and how the emulation works. But again, you can do the LaunchWith. You can do 6-button with every game, PlayStation 5 with every game, the X input. Specifically with Guitar Hero, it will have the selection for, like, I don't have guitar showing for every subsection here, but if you go under, for example, Guitar Hero, like Smash Hits, I guess, you'll have Guitar Hero guitars. Rock Band will have Rock Band guitars because I do actually have Rock Band guitars and I do have Guitar Hero guitars and they do feel different. Definitely. They're fun to have because some people do appreciate the feeling. There's also the Guitar Hero Live, I believe it was, with the 6-button controllers. I have that set up in Clone Hero, which I'll be going into here too shortly, which is the word of the day here. Well, now I'm in S. I mean, I should probably go back to R for Rock Band, but I just get lost talking. But yeah, you go into Rock Band too, additional apps, and then you'll see here the Rock Band guitars. So it's great. It works beautifully, especially with all the song content. It's wonderful to have friends over and just being able to pick anything that you like to do. PlayStation Network too is great, being able to revisit all those. The 3DO doesn't have any subsections because, I mean, it was the 3DO, but it has an interesting amount of content, and I like the theme. This feels kind of retro. So Atari 2600, I mean, yeah, these are, I like the theme, so I like to go into them, but also these ones are more categorized, as you can see, prototypes, all games, Europe, going under all games. I just like the theme. So the 2600, 5600, 7800, they're all going to kind of have this sort of a theme, so I'll just show this one, and you can assume the rest here to save some time. But it's neat. I feel like I cover the most essential systems. Anything else people start adding, I think, over and above this. I mean, I might have missed something that's curious, like a curiosity, but I think the core systems are all covered here. I think anything beyond this might be too retro or too weird. Probably a lot more computer systems to add, I think, but I love recommendations. If there's something missing here, they're like, oh my god, you gotta add this. I'd love to hear about it. Going under the Jaguar. Now that there's this PEMU, I think it is. I forgot, but it's a brilliant emulator done by some brilliant coder who just invested their time into this. Or it was a side project from something they were licensed to do. I'm going way into any details that isn't necessary here right now. But either way, it's a brilliant emulator. Love it. Jaguar is now fun to play and explore and relive history with. But yet again, we see that you have different selections here. So yes, every emulator, every game, you can pick the different controllers and different options to do so with. ColecoVision is the same thing, like the other older ones. I can go into more details if you're curious. You really want me to go into those? Sure, I'll go into them. any of the cover boxes that aren't available, that don't have a theme, goes into Retrotastic. I think is the third and last theme I kind of touch on in this build. So for the more smaller, obscure, I mean Amiga CD, well, CD32 is obscure, the Amiga might not be, they will use Retrotastic. But it had wonderful stuff. Like looking at Akira, like I never got to grow up with Amiga CD32 or experience it, the actual system. So yeah, these games are actually really neat. It's fantastic. On television, a game with the greatest fan art ever. Xbox. So we have all games, North America, overseas, and translations. Only 7 for translations, because yeah, I think Xbox pretty much was mostly North America because it just didn't get much traction in Japan. So it's kind of neat to even have translations at all. But yeah, you go under the Xbox section again, the marquees are all dynamically done, so you have that unity of a cool art and background. I think it's cooler for these type of systems because it'll have access to more fan art. I mean, like if every game is something that's kind of has some sort of media attached to it, it's going to be displaying much better on the marquees and such. So maybe in the future, if something looks kind of meh, might explore another option for the smaller systems, but I think this works pretty well. No, that's the craziest part is that some people are looking for like marquee media art for everything and trying to make sure every game has its own specific marquee art, and oh my god, no thank you. Once I found this method of an approach, yeah, that's what we're doing here. Also, I think third screen will also prioritize different types of media. So on the left, if the smaller subsections like Teknoparrot might be missing some sort of a box art, it will actually be grabbing things like just the fan art or a video instead. So it'll be prioritizing different things. It's, again, a beautiful plugin. But yeah, it's the Xbox. Again, I'll be going into what emulator I use for all these subsections in future videos after this one. This one's this video's already I don't even know how long it's running. I'm sure it's like 30 minutes already just talking about menus, what I'll be going into later. So all games under, let's say, Xbox 360, we get them all displaying here again with neat videos. This emulator, I think, it's definitely great. I think it was based off some sort of leaks of an Xbox 360 emulator for the newest Xbox, and that kind of got kickstarted this. So I think most of this emulator is within the last like year for significant improvements. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be going skyrocketing from here and probably catching up. I think at this moment in time, though, the PlayStation 3 emulator is much more solid, I guess, when you're picking games, trying to play them, emulate them. This is no slouch, make no mistake. And definitely the Xbox Live section, and some of them maybe simpler stuff to emulate, works beautifully. And I think it's probably where it shines most because you have access to some pretty really interesting games, actually. I mean, I guess a lot of them are mirrored on the PlayStation 3 side too, but they're neat. Let me just discuss the PlayStation 3. Well, I'll come back to that for more details. The PlayStation 3 emulator also, because a lot of it is installed, it runs faster too. So if you're going into the PlayStation Network section, those are technically installed, air quotes, on your hard drive. So when you're launching them through the emulator, they're going to be loading faster and not asking to install additional content because it's not a CD you're using. But if you're going under the retail section on the PlayStation 3 games, those are going to be literal retail CD games. So they could ask you to install, so it could take some time to actually get into the game even once you want to just jump into and play something. Which is why the PlayStation Network section is so great, because those ones are technically already pre-installed. You can just jump in. So if there's a version in both, and make no mistake, if there is a version in the retail section and the PlayStation Network section, they are two different things. You'll be able to select it, because if for whatever reason the CD version, you'd want to launch it. I don't know, maybe it had a different patch or something. Shrug. It's available. The PCFX, that was a really interesting system. I used to grow up on it through magazines and just reading up about it, but seeing some of the FMV fighting games were just so fun. It's one of those systems. I'll go into more details in the future. TurboGrafx 16. This is the only section that I actually have a lot of Japanese. most of this, well, this entire setup focuses on North America and English only priorities, but the PC engine was so huge. I mean, like 303 games. When you're thinking about some of the classics, you're thinking about like the Dracula X and things like that. So I don't know, I just thought I'd focus more on the Japanese stuff here too, which makes this section a little bit different than the others. But yeah, we have translations 41, North American games, which is still 95. I remember my neighbor had the TurboGrafx 16 for some reason, made no sense to me. But we used to play Bravo Man all the time. That's just my solid memory about this system, was playing this game. Yeah, so we'll be going into more details about that. TurboGrafx CD. I'm trying to think of something good to say. I mean, it's a great system. So, don't mean to be dumbfounded there for a second. I'm just like, I don't know what really much more to say about it. It's great. Oh, look at that art. So I love that. Sometimes you can just scroll by and then just see something like that. Things like the music, if some song it gets in your way and you don't like it, you can just press it on the controller here. Like right now I'm controlling everything with a controller. I can step up to the arcade panel up there, which is actually on what I call an umbilical cord. You'll be able to just grab the whole arcade unit and just slide it down so you're not right in front of a 70-inch TV playing with your nose right up in front of it. So that's kind of neat. But I'm back here making the video, so I'm just controlling with the controller. Yeah, with all these controllers here, everything works at the same time, which is one of the biggest things I was going to go into about the GUIs. You don't need to all tap out of this. You just have to make sure you power down whatever you're using. So if I don't want to use like the Pro 2, well, I just have to shut that off, grab what controller I'm going to be using, turn that on. It controls the menu, so I don't really care. You know, you just grab the controller and start using it. But then you know where you go. You just have to make sure that your other controllers are powered on before you go into something else. A lot of other people will make videos explain why. I'll go into those details why too, but there's reasons. So we go under N64 All Games, which also has 64DD. And 64DD had like 2 games, which is why sometimes I don't understand why people have so many subsections of menus. Like, it just confuses you. You have just way too selection overload. You start having no idea what to play, and do you really need to scroll through 64DD when it has like 2 games and needs its own menu? Yeah. I mean, maybe for you, I guess. Sure, I guess. But I don't know, for me, I just put like right there in the menu, the 64DD, and the English translation too, because I'm like, well, I don't need just the Japanese version, right? The F-Zero X64DD expansion kit, but you can go under Launch With. So again, 6-button controller. With the N64, I'll be showing, they're actually wireless N64 controllers that have built-in rumble. They are crazy good. There is something new that I found online. I'll be talking about them. They're really neat playing. Oh, that's the other thing. I'll be describing everything here is for players, essentially. Like when I have so when I have these Pro 2 controllers, there's going to be 4 of them. So everything here is 4 players. The N64, I have 4 of them, so I'll be displaying 4-player N64. GameCube, I have 4 of them, 4-player N64. Things like that. So that'll be fun to get into here shortly. Europe, North America, translations. Nintendo surprisingly only has 1,176 games because I just feel like I thought there was just a flood, but I think it's just a flood because of hacks and things like that. So the way that this is set up here, all games I think will include unlicensed, because honestly, unlicensed games, we still grew up with them, I think. At least I did with the Nintendo. They weren't just unlicensed. There's things like Tetris, like just because they didn't get a license for the games, they released them and they were popular. So we go under all games. I love this theme. Like, it's just so perfect. It just captures everything about the Nintendo. Yeah. This section has all the matching music. As bad as it is there, I suppose. Oh, okay, maybe not every game has every matching music, but most games have matching music. But it looks great. I love it. Unlicensed. I guess I'll explain what the licensed were. So yeah, they're like the Baby Boomer, which was that weird Lightgun game, the Cheetah Man, so of course Angry Video Game Nerd. Cheetah Man 2. Wasn't there a Cheetah Man 1? I mean, it was part of Action 52, right? The Cheetah Man was part of Action 52, okay. Gauntlet. Oh yeah, even Gauntlet was unlicensed. Or was there maybe a licensed version of Gauntlet too? But anyway, like sometimes you just get lost, and I just like to just walk up and view some of the game boxes. So, like, you don't even have to play some of these. It's just fun to get lost in the media. GameCube, we have North America, translations, 11 of them here, and all games 569. Yeah, it's pretty nifty. It's one of the more straightforward sections, but things like the karaoke games are really interesting in this, I guess I need to touch on. Especially things like the PlayStation 2 karaoke. Because of the way that the setup is here too, because there's actually another mixer in the back left area there that controls just like mic inputs. So the way that the emulator will work, like Karaoke Revolution, let's say for the PlayStation 2, you'll sing into it, the emulator will record your voice and play it back through your speakers, just like it would be like if you're on a TV and such, and then give you your vocal ratings, air quotes. The way that it works through this specific setup, it's kind of neat that I found out, is that you can still keep the vocals going to a microphone. For example, like this USB one I'm speaking to now, you can mute the playback in the game entirely, so you don't hear your voice going through the delayed emulator, because that's the biggest thing. You'll hear yourself and you hear the millisecond delay, so it throws you off because you just keep hearing your voice and it's horrible. So you mute yourself in those games, and then with the specific separate channel for the vocals going through the monitor speaker up there, it'll be instantaneous, so there's no delay in it. And the game will still record it because it's still listening through the USB, but it's playing out through specifically that speaker. And that's something unique that the setup allows you to do. And I take advantage of that in certain other emulators here later that I'll be describing. But it sounds really cool, and it still rates you in the game, and it works perfectly, and it doesn't have that horribleness to it. So it kind of opens up a bunch of fun karaoke games in all these subsections and subsystems. I think I have it working in all the different games or all the emulators and systems that have karaoke games and a microphone built in for it. But like you go under the section here, so with this one it'll be like launch with 6-button arcade sticks, the D input, real GameCube joysticks that I'll be showing there later, like I mentioned, and then the X input. They don't show the Wii, like it says /Wii simply because they are usable in the Wii section under the Dolphin emulator because they all use the same thing. But as you can see there, on GameCube section doesn't have access to things like the Wiimote because you don't need to see those. Yeah. Holy moly, did I go over every section already? I must have. Alright, so that's what we're going to be detailing here in those sections. There's a lot of cool things in them too that I even touch on here just scrolling over, but we're going to be jumping back into all the other menus here now and going over what we're going to be detailing about them. Fightcade. Fightcade is its own beast. It's crazy. It's cool. Essentially, it's like MAME, but online. Think of like, I don't know, things pops into my mind like a Discord channel. Every Discord channel is associated with a specific MAME ROM, let's say. So let's say Street Fighter 3, and maybe there's like 100 people playing Street Fighter 3. You'll be able to go on it and play online without lag, and basically the entire MAME ROM set. I mean, that's really high level, but yeah, you can just play online. So it changes this whole setup. Even if there's nobody here to play with, well, maybe today I'm going to jump into Fightcade and just play online with everybody. And again, you can use controllers, you can use the arcade panel, you can use whatever you like with this subsection. Handhelds really lean on the shaders for that section, so when I'm going to be going into them, I'll just go into them here really quick. The shaders make it unique and playable. I mean, usually you'll think of Game Gear and you'll be like, yeah, well, when the heck am I ever going to be playing Game Gear? But honestly, with the filters or the shaders and some classic games like maybe the old school Sonic games, I mean, it's a Sonic game. It's solid. It's pretty neat. So let's just check that out really quickly. So under the game, well, here, I'll go over all the sections here quickly first. So Sega Game Gear, 302 games. SNK, Neo Geo Pocket Color, and Pocket. I don't think I subdivided it into the gray, black and white version, the color, or I didn't even... No, I think I got both ROM sets under here. 79. But again, this one is more... Oh, I do have North America. Go me. 50 games separated for North America, 25 for overseas. 79 total. PlayStation Vita, 972. Again, this one was cool because, yeah... Well, actually, I've not done the DLC. This one... Just like knitting, I have to sit back and just kind of relax, watch some YouTube videos, and do some DLC stuff with this. But it has all the updates, because I thought that was much more important, so it's kind of nifty. And it's one of those really neat emulators. Like, you think of Vita, you're like, Vita? But it's just like the PlayStation 3 one. It's getting really sophisticated. It's really nifty. Yeah, I'll go into more details. PSP, 1,629 games. Yeah, I'll go into subsections later. Links, 78 games. Nintendo 3DS, 1,199. Nintendo DS, 2,245. Game Boy, 629. Game Boy Advance, 1,098. Game Boy Color, 632. Virtual Boy, 25. Go Virtual Boy. And I arrived back at the Game Gear of 302. So go under here. Again, every section should be set up like this. We have translations, 27. All games, 275. So let's go under all games. And I can show you just what I mean exactly by this section being its own separate thing. Well, I don't want to show Aladdin again. I keep showing Aladdin. Let's do Sonic, right? It's the one that's interesting. Let's start off with it. So we go under Sonic. Say Sonic 2. So again, you can do 6-button D input or whatever. The manual still works, so you can go through and catch yourself up with all that. View the 3D model, flip it around, whoosh, it's pretty nifty. But the default is always these Pro 2 controllers. I guess never really mentioned that. So if you ever just click play, if nobody knows what they're doing here, since all the emulators in RetroArch work with the arcade panel, it covers like 16 of those subsystems I went into, something ridiculous, that all work on the arcade panel and all work on controllers. So if you just click play, 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 and you mash buttons and you launch a default, it's going to launch into something that's still controllable with either arcade panel or these Pro 2 controllers, which is always the default usually. But since Pro 2 are defaulted to X input, you can grab like a Xbox Elite controller or anything that's X input essentially, and they're fully substitutable. So if I wanted to grab like this Xbox Elite controller here, then just tag this in, you can do so. But I like the Game Gear because it'll actually have like the bezel for the Game Gear, and this one actually looks super fantastic. I wanted to show off Game Gear because I think it actually looks the most realistic. It's such a dumb system, but with the bezel and the RetroArch shaders applied, it's just so great. And again, because the bezels are all auto-generated, it looks pretty sophisticated. Like, it's better than the fan art out there, I would imagine. Yeah, and you're playing. I love that. Actually, this one probably doesn't look too much different with the shaders, but we'll see. Well, actually, no, I probably should. Oh yeah, see, look at this. Like, it's... You can see the bones there. Like, it's sharp, you got the pixels, and they're there. It's just missing that magic. And so every emulator that I'll be showing off in the future here, like I said, I'll be going into all the different sections. You can see cool things that you can do with them. Like, softness it brings, and a lot of people will be like, oh, you can just press this button and you can set up this type of a bezel artwork and then this type of a shader and you can just scroll through them. But yeah, I'll go into details about that and why I set it up the way I did for this here. Yeah, so you press start and select. We quit out of this here, let's move on. So get out of this here. But yeah, I mean, these sections are all here. The more interesting ones, I guess, are the Vita and the PSP, I think, simply because of its subsection. The subsections that are interesting are the minis, 292, The Japanese selection of 64 games simply because I thought they're really interesting. 107 European, 720 all games, and translations 79, PlayStation Network 474. It looks really cool as a theme. That's why I always want to show the PlayStation Portable theme. It looks really cool. It's very widescreen. The emulator for this is really cool too because it is RetroArch, but it's fully widescreen. Like when I'll show what that means exactly. I don't know what was a good quick game to try with this, but Ghost Rider I think was pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. Let's just try Ghost Rider anyway. Again, launch with, you have all the different subsections of inputs. Play is always going to be defaulted to the Pro 2. What it does for these sections, it extracts the game, which is essentially what the now loading screen is. It's just unzipping the game. But it's really cool. I love these little intros with the UMD in the corner there. It actually spins for CDs, so it's kind of nifty to see some of the disc art spinning. This is what I mean by its full screen RetroArch, because I mean the PlayStation Portable was widescreen and 16:9, so you can just blow it out onto the full screen here. That sounds bad because a lot of people would be like, "Whoa, why would you want a full screen PlayStation Portable? It's going to look pretty bad." I mean, normally. But I think with the right RetroArch filters like now here, it looks really good. You just have to make sure it's all configured properly. I think they just go like fire combos. Yeah, just let me play. Sure, story mode. So when I'm trying to pick the different settings in the emulator styles, like sometimes people will pick a lot of these filters that will apply some sort of weird cartoony brush stroke, I think, over fonts. I don't like that, so I gotta keep it pixelated, but games like this, I think just look great. Like you can play them full screen, widescreen like this, and it just looks really sharp. I'll be going over into more details like the upscaling and such, what sort of settings I use in future videos, but it looks good. I love the reflections on the side. It's kind of like just like a PSP in your face. So same thing, we quit out of it, start and select. If it's a RetroArch emulator, it's going to be start and select to quit out of it. Some of the other games, the way that I have it set up is absolutely everything in the setup can be quit by a black escape button in the top left on the arcade panel. That's basically the emergency eject button for everything that you normally use. But everything else you can normally just start and select and quit out of it. Then we go into the karaoke section. This is kind of nifty because, again, like I said, this is more than just an emulator setup. It's a whole media setup, I guess. So we have Karafun, which is going to be a really cool, almost like a professional... what word am I thinking of? Just karaoke bar, I guess. Where it'll give you like a QR code that you'll be able to set up with everybody that you have at your home here. They'll scan that QR code with their phone. They get access to the entire media library of what media is available, and it's sort of like Spotify. So you don't have your own media, you have access to their media. So they'll scan with the QR code. They have access to your specific session of what you're singing. They'll put their name in. It's kind of like a cool graphical interface. And then you can sing. So you pick your songs, and then it'll display the lyrics up on there. And it's really cool. Virtual DJ, I'm going to be going into explaining about the turntables, how that all works. This whole system is actually linked to it. So they have time code CDs on them. So you'll be able to, scratch away and do all your mixing live there as you're playing up here with some cool visual effects. It's pretty neat. MAME is its own separate section simply because I feel like when you come in here, you want to do arcade. You just want to focus on arcade. You want it to be quick and easy to find and its own separate thing. You want to have an arcade day. Off you go into this section here. Some of the sections are auto-generated by LaunchBox. Some of them I've added myself here. Things like 3-player. If you don't really have a 3-player section, you miss out on some games that you might just scroll by because you don't have it in other sections. Honestly, things like Mercs. Well, I think Mercs is the biggest one that comes to my mind, but there's a bunch of really cool 3-player games that if you have it on a 2-player, 4-player, it's not going to find it because it's a 3-player game, you know. Double Dragon 3 was 3 players. There was this weird Judge Dredd beat 'em up game that was 3 players. It was actually kind of fun. It's so tongue-in-cheek. It's great. Alright, getting back into the arcade section here. The thing that makes it different also is the marquees, like I was mentioning there earlier. If any of the games have a high-quality art that I found online, I specifically wanted to make sure I included that marquee. Just because I feel like Marquees actually had something that were made specific to the game, so it's high quality, and it just kind of gives you that arcade feel. You know, every cabinet had that marquee across the top, and it's just a lot more recognizable. But if a game doesn't have anything high quality, it'll still auto-generate something. So either way, it still looks really sharp and really great. The shaders look really good for the arcade also. I guess one of the more fun ones to put on always is Street Fighter, so I guess I'll show that one here really quick. But again, we'll go into more details in the future in further videos about how this is all set up here. Let's go Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. Oh, World Warrior. Let's go with the original World Warrior. So this one will also have like the different versions that you can play through here, so you can pick any of the other ones. But it'll always default to the newest. So again, with Launch With, you can also pick the 6-button controllers, so you can do that, or any X input controllers, so the Xbox Elite and such. But away we go. Let's launch it up. So with this one again, anything under the arcade section will have high quality bezels. I feel arcade is worth it to go that extra mile. But the shaders make everything just look wonderful. So of course let's start off with the WiiU. This one in particular again looks a little bit different because it uses a curved screen for the monitor. I just feel like arcades just naturally had that curvature to them, so it just looks better that way. And yeah, it just looks so crisp and so sharp. I guess like turning it off here, let's see what that looks like again without the shaders. Still Street Fighter, still looks good, I mean, but just gives it that extra unique touch to it. Alright, let's put it back on. And there we go. We have what it looks like here. So, looks brilliant. I love it. Quit out of this here now. Nice game over screens. Yeah, let's get out of this here. I think that's the most interesting part about the arcade section. It's the most straightforward. I mean, it's MAME. Of course, things like the light gun, once I go in the Sinden section, I'll probably detail more things. I guess the other more interesting thing are their vertical scrollers will have a vertical bezel applied to it and not just stretch it out or blow it out or anything like that. It'll just make it look nice. I think a good one for that is like 1942, which I think was CPS 1. 1941 this one was, yeah. It looks pretty cool. I guess I would show that really quick. But yeah, see, it'll go ahead and it knows it's a vertical game, so it'll go ahead and set that all up. By high quality bezel art, this is what I mean. You can see the AB there, how to play. It's just wonderful. I guess I showed the logo of the screen there, but I guess I could have gone to the game to play. But Either way, like I said, I'll make more videos in the future to show the shaders in more detail. Konami Classics. These are all the different subsections. Don't know if I explained too much about the Romset, I guess. It's based off of the entire MAME set that you can get anywhere, but in particular, this is my selection of games. I feel it covers a wonderful amount of unique games, but nothing mahjong, no casino type games, nothing like that. That, I mean, I'm sure great, maybe I might even add on to like a subsection of the menus here, but I feel are just clutter. So the games listed here, I'll probably scroll through here really quick, but you can see they're not duplicated. They're not just garbage Japanese games or anything like that. They're specific selections of games that are all really nicely organized with really nice art, nice box art even. And yeah, they're just a selection of games that I've done. I'll probably go into more details about what I selected and why later, but 2,873 made the cut, looks like. Lightgun Games, these are going to be interesting. I think maybe people might find this one more interesting just because they might have Sinden guns, because I'll go into detail about how I set up every emulator. And a lot of people talk about Sinden and say that it's like a gun that you need, the lights really affect everything. You need to have the proper lighting, proper this, or else it's just going to fail. And it's not true at all. I mean, like, look at this room. I'm going to show it working perfectly fine in this. It's great. It's super accurate. I can't compare it to some of the other crazy setups that some people have. I mean, I've seen people display their setups that are just ridiculous. I think there's like, I could just watch some video of Vic VP. I think his channel is, it's great. I love the stuff that he does. But one of the things he just set up is like a light gun setup. It's sort of like, well, not really sort of like this, but it's a light gun setup that looks wonderful and crazy. But I think I heard him say that it was like $1,500 for those guns, American. That makes me want to faint. A lot of the stuff here looks really fancy, but it's like a lot of reused stuff, like the TV, something that I didn't have a use for, so I threw it in there. That's an old monitor there. Those DJ decks I had like 15, 20 years ago. So like this arcade panel that I'm going to redo here, which is another why this project is a living beast. I'm going to get rid of the whole panel and hopefully just redo that, but that's from an old arcade that I didn't have room for, which is what this whole project came from. I didn't know what to do with this big bulky arcade cabinet, so I dismantled it and then just kept adding stuff until you see what you see here. But like the Sinden guns, like even those ones were costly. Having the two of them, I think was like, I think it must have came out like 600, 700 Canadian, mind you. But after like duties and shipping and getting two of them, and, yeah. But they're great. And I thought the investment for, now that I say that out loud, but again, if it was 1,500 American, that must have been like 2,200 Canadian, I would imagine. Yeah, that's. I don't know. I'd love to take a look and see what those guns must have felt like, though. Jeez. But yeah, anyway, I'm trailing off. Focus again here. So what we're going to be detailing is a bunch of different sections here. Teknoparrot, all the different games are going to be configured. So 44 in Teknoparrot configured to work with specifically against Sinden. 2 players, all of them. The only games that I couldn't get to work, and I still can't for whatever reason, is Far Cry. Actually, that's the only game that I can't get to work is Far Cry. I think I have zero idea why. I can't get the guns to hook into it. I've set up everything else except Far Cry. No clue. There's pedals that I use also, so things like Time Crisis, once I go into the details about how the Sindens are configured and how they work. Things like Time Crisis will work with the pedal. House of the Dead, I think EX was the one. It has like a game where you squish spiders, so you use like the pedal for that. It's kind of neat. Scarlet Dawn. Every game also has its own profile. So the really cool thing about Sinden that you can do that I don't know, I think the other guns sort of do them, but they're kind of wonky from what I see in the videos. So like machine gun, like Uzis. So a game like House of the Dead, Scarlet Dawn, Actually, it probably will be one of the first ones I'll show working here. It will automatically default the guns to a profile that is like an Uzi, so it'll be a really rapid fire. As a part to loading up something like Target Terror. Target Terror will be a single shot game, so it'll load a single shot profile for the guns. You don't have to select any of this. This is all auto-selected. And then it'll have that for those games. Or a game that's sort of not an Uzi, but it's a rapid fire game. Not Rambo, but like Transformers maybe. It's a little bit more pulsy, so you can see it there, pulses. So the Sinden profile that I'll be showing is more of a pulsy automatic one. I'll explain how I got that all kind of configured for all these games here also. It's pretty neat. I guess, yeah, I'll jump into that here in just a minute, because I will show that here really quickly before I end this video here. So we have Wii. Wii is a little bit unique to configure in Sinden because one-player games, you can use the latest version of Dolphin, but it only works one player if you use the latest version. So you can have some of the more graphical enhancements and have it work fine using the latest version of the emulator. Specifically 2 players for the Wii, it needs to use like an older version of Dolphin, something really specific. So that's why it's sort of mirrored here for 2 players. That way you get the best of both worlds. I don't know if that's been since changed. I set up Sinden about 3 months ago. So just to give a quick, I guess a quick timeline, I think this whole setup's about 6 months of work, 7 months, of which I had the Sinden set up like month 4, something like that, and then never really revisited it to kind of get updated, but I mean, that's what I'm going to start doing here now. Windows Sinden games are great because there's some unique things that I'd love to show. Things like the House of the Dead remake is actually in arcade mode, so it's really nifty that you can put it in like quarters. It's not going through a story mode or a lot of menus like other things might show. Yes, but it's great. I can't wait to show that. Blue Estate working 2 players is really cool on Sinden. Yeah. Going into Lightgun Games, again, these ones are the MAME ones. So with these ones, again, if it's like a game that has more of an Uzi profile, it'll have it. The cool thing about it is that it launches, because if the Sinden software was running right now, you'd be using up a whole bunch of CPU background power. It would be probably using some inputs and causing some chaos in RetroArch and things. So the way that these subsections actually work is that the Sinden software will not launch until you actually launch one of these games. Right now there is no software running. You'll run a game, it'll launch the Sinden software, prep everything ready for you, guns work. You quit out of the game, it's going to quit out of the Sinden software, kill it, and then that way it doesn't interfere with any other of the emulators as inputs or anything else. So it's really nifty like that. And then that's also what allows you to do all the different types of shooty styles. The shooting big shoot styles. Demo 14 games. There's subcategories like this because it just logically makes sense to me. I'll probably go into more details why in future videos. But demo AM2 games, so this is like the Jurassic Park and pretty much what you would. Oh, it's not Jurassic Park, it's the House of the Dead, sorry. And Virtual Cop 2, right? It's the older stuff. Model 3, that's the Jurassic Park one. Nintendo, 23 games. PlayStation 1 Sinden, 21 games. PlayStation 2, 16. PlayStation 3, 3 games, which really doesn't matter because they're all in Teknoparrot in much better form. American Laser Games, the Laserdisc ones, which are fantastically fun. Fantastically fun. Super Nintendo Sinden games, 12. Teknoparrot, 44. Yeah, they're all set up and configured to work. Let's take a look at what I mean by the cool profile types. Let's launch Scarlet Dawn. So we're going to power off the 8-bit DOE while this is launching. And yeah, So I'll go over some details of what will be happening. So the way Sinden guns work is that they're essentially webcams, well, not webcams, or cameras that will be looking for a white border. So all these games take a while to configure simply because how to get a white border displaying for every game might be unique, especially in Teknoparrot. A lot of things will try to be forefronted over top of other things and take priority. So now I'll go ahead and grab the guns. The guns are on the side of the setup here. They're just on little hooks. Hopefully I'll get them nicely presented in the future. But so we have the Sinden guns here. So I have two of these on the system right now. They're both black in color, basic like that. But I'll show you what I mean by the UCs and stuff.
House of the Dead.
So you'll see here, you can go enter like story mode, let's say. So, oh yeah, this one I didn't pick the UC mode because there's multiple different guns, so I went with the pulse rate because it was something in the medium, but it still gets the idea across. So we pick a gun, a machine gun, and we go yes. Alright, and the game loads up here. So I don't know how far away I'm here, probably like about 10 feet from the TV, probably a little bit further back. You can be a little bit closer than this to the TV if you really wanted to, but about here I think it works the best. Yes, let's go.
Shoot!
So, and there we go. You can shoot off screen, which is really neat here too, so you can reload with the bottom to go into your next gun. So now I'm on the Gatling gun with the bottom. It's really cool because it actually has a little pulse reload with different effects here too, so you can configure the effects to be different things. So like if I do a pulse reload, I can make it so it doesn't do that clicking sound with it. But I think it works pretty cool for certain games like this, like keep the clicking. And then yeah, we're going to go through. So that's one of the cool things about the Sinden is that you can do cool profiles like that. And you can see how it tracks really well. I mean, I don't have any issues. You can see the lights going crazy in the room. Doesn't matter. I'll go into details about how I have my Sindens configured, the contrast and all that. Yeah, so let's put out of this here.
Player 1 damage. I'm getting sloppy. Player 1 damage.
And it's just that easy to quit out of the games. You press the black exit button there, you're out. It will do a number of things in the background. It will kill the Sinden software, gets rid of the guns here. I even think it does something in the hardware profiles. I'll take a look, and once I go into more details for future videos, I'll explain what it does exactly, but it kills all the software in the background, which is why you don't need to worry about it anymore. Windows is essentially just the newer games. Something that I'm working on here, things like Street Fighter is pretty cool, because you have Street Fighter 6, what it'll do is it'll launch Steam, it'll log right into Street Fighter 6, and again, you can pick, you can play with all these different controllers. You can play with a PS5 controller, you can play with your arcade panel up there. It all works. I'll just show the Windows theme really quick. It's kind of neat. It just looks like looks like Windows. But yeah, Street Fighter 6 is the biggest one. I'll have to keep adding more games in the future, but it's pretty nifty. Arcade. Arcade is a little bit different. So the way I picture arcade is all the newer stuff. Like when you picture MAME, you're thinking about old school arcades. You think about the 90s, the 80s, at least I do, maybe early 2000s. When I picture arcade, what my idea is more the 3D stuff. So the Atomus Wave, the AM2, the Model 3, the Naomi 2, the Teknoparrot, which is all the other games that are not the Sinden ones, so 107. Again, all configured to the PlayStation 5 controller, the Xbox controller, the arcade panel, whatever you like to do. I'll show that really quick. Daphne, Laserdisc games, which have some 4K versions of certain games in there, which are really cool. Beats of Rage, which is more like fan content, Streets of Rage type games. Pinball FX3, which is pinball. I don't really feel pinball works very well on this setup. I mean, it works, it's just not the greatest, but I love Pinball FX3. It's great. Using the side flippers work for all the games, and it's kind of nifty. I think I had it once where like what do they call the DMD background, or whatever they're called, displaying on the left monitor there, and then like pinball on the front, which was kind of nifty. But I mean, like, it's just, yeah. So going into like a section for Teknoparrot, the way that works when I mention the different options, we'll just pick whatever, but Dead or Alive 6 was additional apps and versions. So you have the 6-button analog and 6-button digital. The reason why those are separated is because one of the 6-button controllers here is the Hori Fight Stick, which is like an analog with an 8-way gate applied onto the analog stick. It's pretty nifty. I think it was a cool addition to the whole setup, so including it in all the configurations, I think makes a big difference, considering Teknoparrot is all the new games and you can use it for that. It's mostly all fighting stuff anyway, so it's really cool to use for it. But they're all configured like that, so you can go like Hyper Street Fighter 2 and see that there's the different digital Pro 2, PS5. I guess one thing I do need to add is the analog. No, I don't need to add analog PS5. Oh, I don't know. I think you would, because yeah, the directional paths will be mapped to the digital pad. So I'll add on maybe analog PS5 controls to all these too. Daphne is cool because it has some nifty enhancements like the 4K versions of Dragon Slayer 2, which really does actually add some really nifty visuals to it. It really does. I think they used AI to upscale it, so it's the greatest version I've seen of it. The HD 60 frame version almost looks surreal. The movement, I don't know. It's just the motion interpolation with the TVs. It makes it look like a soap opera. It's just strange. I don't understand why people like it. I added it there because it's something cool to see, to just present. And it's just like, hey, here it is in 60 frames if you do like it. I do have the different versions of that. It's neat. Beats of Rage surprisingly has a lot of content and media to use, even in this. Look, like Bad Schoolgirls has box art for it. It's kind of nifty. I didn't know what to expect going into this about how sophisticated this is, but it's a really fun setup. Some of these homemade games are just crazy. Oh, homemade. Home-baked games. Model 3. I mean, these are probably the more familiar ROM sets that you might see out there, just a little bit more trim. They're just kind of... I mean, if there was something that was really silly to include... Well, no, I guess they're all still here. And the ROMs are still there. They're just hidden too. One thing you can do with LaunchBox, you don't have to delete them. They can still even be existing in your collection. You just have to hide it, so it just doesn't display it. And if you ever want to play something that I have hidden, it'll be like, well, where is this game? It's like, oh, I can just unhide it. Then yes, Clone Hero. Clone Hero is another section that's probably going to take a lot of time. Now, what a lot of setups will have that you'll see with Clone Hero that they'll say is that they'll have all the guitar heroes, all the rock bands, and all the DLC. And that's really cool. That's what I have here too. Every rock band, every DLC, every Guitar Hero game presented here. But a lot of people will tell you, and you can also download videos for all these things and place it as your background. It's really cool. Yeah, I did that. So every game has the video background that's available for every single subsection of game. I think it takes up, it's like hundreds of gigabytes. It was crazy. I think I had to rename a bunch of different files individually to map them correctly to it. It might be something that'll show and then mute, because obviously all the songs and stuff in there and something that I could, I'm sure, stream. I'm sure there's some sort of issues with it. But I'll probably explain how Clone Hero is set up, because I have all the guitars working here. So the cool stuff about Guitar Hero is that you can play 4-player with 4 guitars at the same time. So that's what I have set up here, 4 wireless Rock Band guitars working. In the future, I'm going to include MIDI drums also in the setup here, so you can have 3 Guitar Heroes and a drum. And then this being a whole karaoke setup, the other cool thing is, again, you can have the microphone set up here to sing into, broadcasting over the speakers there. So you can either sing yourself playing guitar, have a good time, or just have everybody kind of sing along. It's kind of nifty. Whew. All right, let's go to the computer section now. So with this here, we have the MS-DOS section. Full credit to EXO. He is brilliant. Who is EXO? I'll just look up EXO-DOS. EXO-DOS is a project of just pure passion, of just, well, I mean, 7,243 games. I think there's maybe even more, maybe 7,600 under here. I probably have something a little bit subcategorized differently under that particular section. But him and I guess his team, wow, just absolutely configured every single game. I love his ideology behind it. I love his passion. I love the way he explains everything, his videos. Just brilliant. So I took all of that work and I tried to adapt it into this setup that I have here. I'm also going to try to branch it off into just some unique things that I like to do. But full credit to him. This isn't I mean, what did I do here? I just set up some cool themes, just nifty, but it's fun to show. So the reason why it's subcategorized in 2 different areas, though, is that RetroArch also has a core for DOSBox, and then EXO also uses DOSBox for all his stuff. This section particularly is just EXO-DOS. I have a wireless keyboard and mouse here, so if I go into like these games in particular, they will be usable by that. So it will be mostly a keyboard and mouse setup. Now, the way EXO has it set up is that if the game itself has, I believe, controller support, it will try to hook into that, and you can use your controller and play with it. So I can kind of launch these games and play with a controller, sort of, if the game supported it. I took most of his subcategories, anything that, like, I guess seemed to stand out, I threw it into the selections subcategory. He has some great selections in here. I don't get MS-DOS enough myself. I grew up with it, but I mean, like 7,000 games. Like, I mean, just I'll let him make sure he knows what he's doing there. So I'm sure these selections are all the playlists that he had configured in LaunchBox. I just sort of dumped them all into this subcategory here to kind of browse through. Then I just created a couple of subcategories that I wanted to approach the collection and how I would kind of quickly try to find a game that I would like to play out of like 8,000. And that's just kind of subcategorizing them by 80s games, 90s games, the 2000s games essentially, and up, and the selections. And then just all games in case you just want to browse through all of them at once. Yeah, that way at least you can kind of break down, try to normally find Doom under the 90s, and it's easy to find. I love the theme also. I think I don't know if this was actually from Coverbox. No, I think this theme, actually is just called DOS Matrix, which you see across the top. So if you're looking for this particular theme, it's DOS Matrix. So in LaunchBox, you can actually configure all the different categories that you have with a different theme or a particular view in a theme. So I felt DOS just needed to have this. EXO already did matching a lot of the games to media, but I don't think it's fully mapped, and the only reason why I say that is because they do some scrapes, and it seems to have really re-scraped all the games. Yeah, it's pretty good, but maybe this is how it also originally was set up when I was re-scraping, because maybe it was just something I did. But either way here, there's media for all this. It looks great. I love how it's with the DOS screen there. And then the reason why I have it under RetroArch is because the core inside RetroArch is DOS Pure, I believe it is. And it lets you apply, again, shaders and the cool TV effect. And since RetroArch hooks into the core, it just lets you control the games under the subsection with your controller, no matter what. So you'll have Doom perfectly mapped out to your controller. It's a work of art. So again, I have all the different subsections. It's under 90s. This still uses all of EXO's content of games and all that he has set up. So we load up Doom. Sure, Doom 2, let's say. So RetroArch, again, you can do the 6 buttons. You can do D input, X input, whatever you like with these games too. You click play, it defaults to the Pro 2s. And the mapping is just so nifty. So you actually have to pick your EXE in these ones. Because again, this is the RetroArch core, not the XL setup. The XL setup already has this all configured for you, so you wouldn't never have to see this. It's just beautiful. But I think you just run Doom 2. And just look at this. You know, I had to... I get it, it's a TV, but I still felt like I didn't want to change that. And it still works because it gets that uniformity. But so the way that this is mapped is start is enter. So I press start to go into this. The analog stick is up and down. So I go new game, press start for enter. Hurt me plenty. But the top trigger, or the top, yeah, I guess that's a trigger, or L button, R button, will be the fire. And so you can actually strafe and use your analog stick to do that. So you're going left and right like I am here. And then you can use the right analog stick to actually look left and right. So it actually has a very modern feeling to it, but make no mistake, it is also very much Doom, because it is the actual PC emulated version using DOSBox, so it's not any of the other console versions or anything like that. It's just pure Doom. I don't know too much about how the shaders make it look different. I'll show it really quick. I'm actually very curious. Let's see here. Shaders. Let's turn them off and see what it looks like. Oh yeah, I guess it does really make a difference. So yeah, I mean, this is what, if you were doing it in, I guess, in more of a DOSBox setting, which you would see. Still, I mean, it's Doom. It's Doom, baby. But stop on those video shaders again. All unified across all systems. It's really cool. I'll go into more details. But yeah, we have Doom looking its best here. And again with this, we can exit out of it with the escape. And we're back. Then we go into like Scummvm. Same sort of an option here, but to have the capability, because again, Scummvm and the RetroArch Scummvm are two very different beasts. But the RetroArch is just too hard to pass up with all the filters, the shaders there, you know, and playing with the controller because it maps to your mouse and it works great through here. Honestly, you can launch, you know, Day of the Tentacle, control it with your mouse, or with your well, you can control with your mouse or your controller. I love how it looks. I was going to show Curse of Monkey Island or something, but I mean, it's just, I'll show it later. So this one is specifically different because, here, I'll go into it and I'll explain it. Let's go into like the D input, doesn't really matter, but all these different versions will have the different options available. So like there wasn't just one version of any of these games. There were like different talkie versions, let's say. Well, Monkey Island, there we go. That would probably be the best example of it. So going into... There we go, Monkey Island 2. we'll be able to go with additional apps and versions. So you can pick the Amiga version, the DOS version, the FM Towns, the Macintosh, the Talkie. And because you can still pick with the different controllers, to be able to pick those additional apps for the X input, you have to go into the X input and then pick that version, or else because there's no other way to kind of get at that subcategory. So that's the only reason why it's kind of done like this, but that way it gives you access to everything. And then you have the Scummvm section itself, where Scummvm uses your mouse and keyboard, so just emulating it like it's Scummvm, the latest version. The latest version has access to a lot more games that are compatible in it. The RetroArch version is just not as compatible. Like you just won't be able to play as many different types of games past the core. So that's why I included Scummvm in here too, because yeah, sometimes you'll want to play something that Scum plays. Windows. Again, this is another EXO project. It's like EXO-Win, I think it is, EXO-Win 9X, something along those lines. It's another fun project where it's just a bunch of old school Windows games. I love this theme. It's not one of the default themes from the ones that actually exist. Oh yes, this might be a fourth theme. I think it was from Triangles. I think it's called a Pyramids theme. I felt it just feels like Windows 98. Like this is just what I feel when I think of the 90s, these colors and aesthetics. So I thought it fits really well with it. And these are all mapped. I don't even think I even bothered with controllers for this one. I mean, like, Jesus, I don't think I'm going to play Windows 95 games with a 6-button controller. We're just a madness end, and that's where it ends there. Commodore 64. This was a very interesting system because this system is still actively having new games being made for it, so there's still retail games. So just like EXO, there's somebody called, shoot, I don't remember what his name is, I apologize, but the project is called C64 Dreams. So if you look up C64 Dreams, you'll see, it was Zombiever? Why do I picture Zombiever? I think it is his name. But he did this wonderful stuff, just like EXO does with the DOS. He's doing with the Commodore 64. It's great. The only thing it doesn't come is, like I just mentioned, like 30 retail games that you have to actually purchase, which you add to this collection, which I already added here for my collection here. I added all 30 of those, or however many there were. It's really nifty. It's a fun section to explore because if you grew up with crack-tros and hacking groups and such, they are in all these included. So you can take a look at some of those cool historic scene intros and music. It's really hard to find a specific ROM set for that too, because a lot of the times you'll see what's preserved for the Commodore 64 or like the not hacked versions of those, I guess. So it's really cool to see the C64 Dreams have everything kind of set up for you, just like EXO does. I unfortunately mutilated his playlists, but I included, I don't know, again, just what I wanted to categorize them with. These are not what the default playlists will be. Sorry, I apologize for mutilating your setup. But I did keep the Zap magazine. I'm assuming that's what Zap was. I honestly didn't really know. But those selections there, the best games, I think, were also just the favorites. And then the all games, and I just subcategorized this into the 2000s and such to be able to try to find something cool. And there's Amiga 2101 games. The Amiga games, just like the other sections, they're really hard to find online cracked. So trying to find the games all kind of having the cracked rows set up, because a lot of people want to preserve this. They're going to preserve it, the one where you have to like find the instruction manual, turn to page 30 to decipher, a 30 color pictograph. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but there's just a bunch of weird things you have to look up back then. And then trying to find like a ROM set that would match to find media, because again, as you can scroll through here, you're seeing all the box art matching, even for like ridiculous small games, Arabian Nights. You see fan art, you see the marquees up there being generated with all the different art there. So that took a little bit of time to figure out. I had to really get the names of all these in a specific fashion and still have a set that has all the hacked games in particular, or else they're useless, honestly, in this setup, because when, I don't know, how are you going to look up Charlie J. Cool's manual? Well, I mean, I guess maybe it was never actually protected, but either way, it's set up here. So that's going to be what we're going to be going into in more details here. Over time, I don't know where to begin as far as 2 sections. For more details, maybe let me know. Again, I've never made a video before. Hopefully I'll improve in time. And can't wait to start going into more details about how all these different subcategories and how everything works here in more detail. Alright, well, in the meanwhile, I'll see you all later.